Stockholm Syndrome, 10 Fascinating Facts Through History. Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological response wherein hostages develop a bond with their captors, has intrigued and baffled psychologists, criminologists, and the public alike. This phenomenon, often emerging in the most harrowing of circumstances, reveals the complex nature of human psychology under duress. Here are 10 fascinating facts about Stockholm Syndrome throughout history. Number 1. The origin, Norrmalmstorg robbery detailed. The term Stockholm Syndrome was coined following a dramatic bank robbery in Stockholm, Sweden, at the Norrmalmstorg Square in August 1973. The incident began on August 23, 1973, when Jan-Erik Olsson, on leave from prison, attempted to rob Kreditbanken. During the standoff, which lasted until August 28, Olsson took 4 employees hostage. He demanded his friend Clark Olofsson be brought to him, along with money, a getaway car, and safe passage. Despite the threat to their lives, the hostages developed a psychological alliance with their captors, exhibiting sympathy to the point of defending them after their release. This paradoxical reaction was first termed Norrmalmstorg syndrome by criminologist and psychiatrist Nils Bejerot, later becoming known globally as Stockholm Syndrome. Number 2. Patty Hearst, an American heiress's transformation. Patty Hearst, granddaughter of media mogul William Randolph Hearst, was kidnapped from her Berkeley, California, apartment on February 4, 1974, by the Symbionese Liberation Army, SLA, a left-wing radical group. The SLA aimed to leverage Hearst's status to propagate their political ideology. In a stunning turn of events, Hearst declared her allegiance to the SLA, adopting the nom de guerre Tanya and participating in a series of bank robberies. Captured in September 1975, Hearst's trial sparked national debate over Stockholm Syndrome, coercion, and brainwashing. She was convicted in 1976 but had her sentence commuted by President Jimmy Carter in 1979 and was granted a full pardon by President Bill Clinton in 2001. Number 3. Elizabeth Smart, a case study of resilience and survival. In June 2002, 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was abducted from her Salt Lake City home by Brian David Mitchell and Wanda Barzy. During her 9-month captivity, Smart was subjected to severe abuse, yet her behavior, often cited as Stockholm Syndrome, more accurately reflects complex survival strategies under extreme duress. Smart's rescue in March 2003, facilitated by observant bystanders, marked the beginning of her journey from victim to advocate. She founded the Elizabeth Smart Foundation and became an outspoken advocate for child abduction laws and recovery programs, showcasing remarkable psychological resilience. Elizabeth Smart's story challenges the simplistic application of Stockholm Syndrome, offering insights into the nuanced psychological responses to trauma and the potential for significant post-traumatic growth. Her advocacy work underscores the importance of understanding and supporting the recovery of trauma survivors. Number 4. The Colleen Stan case, a complex bond. On May 10, 1977, 20-year-old Colleen Stan was kidnapped by Cameron and Janice Hooker while hitchhiking. Believing the couple to be safe due to the presence of their child, Stan's journey quickly turned into a nightmare. Over the next 7 years, she endured severe physical and psychological abuse, including being confined in a wooden box under the captor's bed. Despite opportunities to escape, Stan signed a slave contract and expressed her love for Cameron through letters. Janice, disturbed by the relationship between her husband and Stan, eventually facilitated Stan's return to her family. However, Stan did not seek help or disclose her ordeal, opting instead to maintain contact with Cameron. This decision led Janice to report Cameron to the police, resulting in his arrest and conviction for kidnapping, rape, and sexual assault. He received a 104-year prison sentence, arguing unsuccessfully that Stan had consented to their arrangement. Number 5. The Jaycee Lee Dugard abduction. Jaycee Lee Dugard was abducted on June 10, 1991, while walking to a school bus stop in South Lake Tahoe, California. Kidnapper Philip Garrido, a convicted sex offender, and his wife, Nancy, held Dugard captive in a concealed area behind their home for 18 years. During this time, Dugard gave birth to 2 daughters fathered by Garrido. Despite the prolonged captivity, Dugard developed a complicated relationship with her abductors, a phenomenon later analyzed through the lens of Stockholm Syndrome. Her ordeal ended in August 2009 when Garrido's suspicious behavior during a parole meeting led to their arrest and Dugard's discovery. Her case, one of the most prolonged abduction cases in recent U.S. history, exemplifies the complex psychological impacts of long-term captivity and the potential for Stockholm Syndrome development. Number 6. The Brian Nichols Courthouse Escape. In March 2005, Brian Nichols escaped from a courthouse in Atlanta, Georgia, after killing 4 people. During his flight, he took Ashley Smith, a single mother, hostage in her own apartment. Remarkably, Smith managed to connect with Nichols on a personal level, discussing topics such as family, religion, and addiction. She even read to him from Rick Warren's The Purpose-Driven Life, which reportedly influenced Nichols' decision to release her and surrender to the police. Smith's ability to generate empathy from and for Nichols, leading to a peaceful resolution of her captivity, is a modern example of Stockholm Syndrome. Her story illustrates the potential for human connection and understanding in even the most dire circumstances, showcasing the unpredictable nature of Stockholm Syndrome. Number 7. The Natasha Campo Escape, a decade of captivity. On March 2, 1998, Natasha Campo, then 10 years old, was abducted in Vienna, Austria, by Wolfgang Pricklepil. She was held in a specially constructed cellar beneath Pricklepil's house for over 8 years. Campo managed to escape on August 23, 2006, when Pricklepil momentarily left her unattended. After her escape, Campo revealed that she had developed a complex relationship with Pricklepil, experiencing moments of care alongside the abuse. She even expressed sadness over Pricklepil's suicide on the day of her escape. Campo's case is particularly insightful into Stockholm Syndrome due to the length of her captivity and the nuanced dynamics of her relationship with her captor, challenging simplistic narratives about victim-captor relationships. Number 8. Flight 847, Hijacking with a Twist. TWA Flight 847 was hijacked on June 14, 1985, by members of the Islamist group Hezbollah shortly after taking off from Athens, Greece. The hijackers diverted the plane to Beirut, Lebanon, demanding the release of Lebanese prisoners held by Israel. During the ordeal, American passenger Kurt Carlson demonstrated empathy towards the hijackers, understanding their motivations and expressing sympathy for their cause. His reactions during and after the hijacking highlighted how hostages can develop complex feelings towards their captors, potentially as a psychological coping mechanism. Carlson's response under such high-stress conditions provides a real-world example of Stockholm Syndrome outside of a typical hostage situation. Number 9. Mary McElroy, kidnapped and sympathetic. On May 27, 1933, Mary McElroy, the 25-year-old daughter of Kansas City's city manager Henry F. McElroy, was forcibly taken from her home by 4 men. The kidnappers demanded a ransom of $60,000, which her father paid for her release. After being freed from a farmhouse where she was held captive, Mary publicly expressed empathy towards her captors, describing them as businessmen caught in a desperate situation rather than hardened criminals. This unexpected sympathy led to a public outcry, especially when she later visited one of her kidnappers in jail to offer support. Mary's case predates the formal recognition of Stockholm Syndrome but exhibits clear signs of the psychological bond sometimes formed under duress. Her life, unfortunately, ended in tragedy when she committed suicide in 1940, a consequence partly attributed to the public backlash and personal turmoil following her kidnapping. Number 10. The Kidnapping of Ion Pertikaris. In 1904, Ion Pertikaris, a Greek-American playboy, and his stepson were kidnapped in Morocco by Mulay Ahmed Razali, a notorious brigand and tribal leader. This incident, known as the Pertikaris Incident, sparked an international crisis, leading to the famous ultimatum from U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, Pertikaris alive or Razali dead. Despite the high stakes and political tension, Pertikaris developed a form of respect and understanding for Razali during his captivity. Reports suggest that Pertikaris admired Razali's intelligence and principles, seeing him more as a patriotic rebel than a mere kidnapper. The relationship between Pertikaris and Razali, where a captive showed sympathy and even admiration for his captor, serves as an intriguing historical example of Stockholm Syndrome, occurring in the early 20th century. This case also highlights the complexity of human emotions and loyalties when placed in extraordinary circumstances.